Hey Aaron,
Hey Steve, how's it going?
I'm getting over a bad RSV infection.
Oh no.
It's lingering, but I'm getting better.
Good.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting will be conducted electronically. We broadcast on CTN cable channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. Aaron, will you do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Berkowitz.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Colvin Garcia.
Present, Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Councilmember Cornell.
Present, and I'm walking to my house in Ward 5 where I will join more fully. I'm almost home. Sorry, guys.
No problem. Thank you. Commissioner Dale.
Present in
Oh.
Ann Arbor.
Sorry, I skipped Chair Curtis.
Yeah, I'm here, Ann Arbor.
Vice Chair Graham.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hans. Commissioner Kothari.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Levin.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Councilmember Malik.
Here, calling from Ann Arbor's Second Ward.
Thank you. Commissioner Mazlumian. Absent. Commissioner Mitchell.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thought I saw Commissioner Mitchell. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nedrich will be absent today. Commissioner Overpeck.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. And Commissioner Smith.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. That is a quorum.
Excellent. So does anybody want to make changes to tonight's agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda? By Chris Graham. Is there a second by Steve Brown? Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Looks unanimous. Okay. Does anybody want to make changes to last month's meeting minutes? Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So move.
Okay. Steve's first. Anybody want to do second? Peck, or saw Peck's hand. So all in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Next is public comment. We allow 3 minutes per speaker. We don't respond in the moment to speakers, but do appreciate you taking the time to comment. Please call 888-788-0099. Enter meeting ID 988-7619-2402. To raise your hand, press *9. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Aaron, do we have any callers?
We do. Wait, hang on. Okay. So I mentioned to Chair Curtis, I'm going to share a timer on the screen, but it's hard to share my screen and see the callers, so I'm going to quickly pivot. But there is a caller with their hand raised. Caller ending in 134. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Donnelly and Chair Curtis. This is Ken Garber. I live at 28 Haverhill Court. I look forward to Dr. Weber's presentation. I've never heard her. Good of her to show up tonight at this meeting. I really appreciate it. I need some reason for hope because we're now in the 1.5 degrees overshoot era officially, with global, also national emissions actually rising in 2026. To me, an utter global failure to decarbonize. The future looks really bleak. So I need some good news. I like what I've read of the Maze Rays Solar Initiative and especially the multiple geo-exchange projects on Central and North Campus. Ideally, I'd hear the presentation before posing some questions, but because public comment happens at the beginning, I'll do it now. I apologize for that. The President's Commission in 2021 set 2025 as the target date for Scope 2 emissions carbon neutrality. It looks like the current Scope 2 goal year is 2027. Was this a miss Also, to what extent will hitting that 2027 goal rely on purchased RECs or other offsets, like My Green Power? To my mind, My Green Power is a poor substitute for on-site renewables because the pricing structure supports DTE's legacy fossil fuel generation, and even additionality does not guarantee removal of fossil fuel generation, which DTE actually intends to expand. So those are my scope 2 questions, the 2025 goal and the use of RECs and offsets. For scope 3, the PCCN called for establishing carbon neutrality goal dates by 2025 for various emissions categories. I read the U of M Sustainability Operations Update released last month, and there was no mention of goal dates. Instead, it was about establishing a university-wide scope 3 framework by identifying key emissions categories and building baseline data. That's significant, but the PCCN called for setting actual scope 3 goals by last year. So was that another miss? If so, what can we in the public expect to learn about scope 3 categories, baseline levels, and goals this year, acknowledging that this is a really difficult area? Anyway, those are my
About 30
questions.
seconds left.
Again, I apologize for preempting the talk. I certainly don't expect answers tonight, but I wanted to put those questions out there in case answers are at hand. And I want to again thank Dr. Weber for presenting, and I'll be watching with interest.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. No other callers at this time.
Okay, great. So Dr. Weber, I think the floor is all yours.
Thank you. And thank you for those questions. I'm really pleased to be here this evening and appreciate the invitation from the commission, and look forward to walking through some of the key initiatives that are underway and some of the thinking that's in place to tackle what are clearly global imperatives, and how does that show up here in Ann Arbor and on the campus as a global demonstration site. So I want to talk about vision while also talking about the realities of where we are, and I will address those questions, and I really appreciate them because we have made commitments, and I want to update the group on the thinking and why some of those dates have shifted a little bit. So I appreciate that question very much. I'll get to that. We can go to the next slide. So it's going to take not only innovation in this moment, but resolve. And what does resilience look like? Both social resilience and our resilience to keep moving forward and finding solutions and continuing to build community around this work. That's what builds resolve and resilience, along with all of the other things we need to do to build resilience. So these are some of the areas that my team thinks about on a daily basis and works in. And I'll talk in a little bit more detail about each of these as we go. But all of these things are important in the work, not only the technology pieces of it and the energy transition pieces, and keeping an eye on innovation and how can we test those innovations. How do we keep our eye on technology as well? What is the role? I mean, these are big questions. What is the role of AI and massive data and computing in the country and around the world? And what's our role in that conversation in higher ed? I think higher ed is uniquely positioned to help be at the center of the dialogue, not only the dialogue, but also leveraging our research assets and leveraging problem solving, like real on the ground problem solving as these things roll out societally. Partnerships are really critical in this work. My team can't do all this work on our own. It really does take a village. So how do we build those partnerships and resilience through those partnerships? And how do we celebrate along the way? Empowering the future, we really see this work on our campus. We see the campus itself as a demonstration site. We really have an opportunity to tinker in our own place. So take these global issues and problem solve them at the local level, and engage the community, engage students in that journey. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. And of course, we are passionate about how our students experience their years at University of Michigan and in the Ann Arbor community. So how do we use that experience and transform that experience so that our students can see and realize what is possible? That desire for hope. If we can demonstrate what is possible and work on it together on our campus in a very real, tangible, experiential way, that's extremely powerful. So these are all the dimensions, and thinking across multiple scales, from the personal experience all the way up to big institutional decisions and partnerships across networks across the country and the globe. So I'll start first a little bit more about the energy transition on the next slide, and talk about our goals. So I'll get to those questions. This is the goal we've set for ourselves for scope 1 and 2. So by 2040, achieving carbon neutrality in both of those scope areas. So for scope 2, which is all of our purchased electricity, everything we buy off the grid, the original goal was 2025. As some of you may be aware, there were some delays in permitting in the state of Michigan to install large-scale solar arrays in communities around the state. So while we did miss the 2025 target, we did not want to erode the principles behind achieving that goal. So the additionality principles and the principle of really leaning into Michigan-based renewables. So we made a decision to not purchase RECs or offsets, and to instead wait until the delays in permitting were lifted and stick to the principle of Michigan-based renewables. And that's in fact what's happening. So the 2027 date now is related to the completion of a power purchase agreement for an 80 megawatt array where U of M is the sole off-taker. So the additionality requirement is met, and that will cover our scope 2 emissions by the time that array is complete, until we outgrow that. But that'll last us for a while. So that's the reason for the shift to 2027. Could that date shift again? It could, if supply chains are impacted. So far we haven't seen a huge impact on supply chains for solar panels. And hopefully that does not happen. So everyone would be in the same boat if that did occur. But right now we're on track for 2027 for scope 2. For scope 3, which is not on this chart, but I'll address that question. The goal was to have targets set for scope 3 in 2025. Given all of the leadership transitions at the institution, we were not able to meet that goal. We were not able to get through the leadership engagement process to get those goals adopted. However, we are poised for that. We've done an enormous amount of work over the last year, and I know the city has done the same, trying to get a handle on where we are. with our scope 3 emissions and doing a lot of work to figure out where can we have the most impact and start to hone in on those scope 3 areas first. So we actually have goals drafted. We just need to get through a leadership decision-making process before we can formally adopt them. So stay tuned on that. We should be able to release those within the next few months. We're on the verge of another leadership transition, so we have to work our way through that as well. But we are ready to post some goals related to major categories in scope 3. So for scope 1, I also wanted to mention, we'll get to that on the next slide, actually. So we can go ahead and move there. So to really tackle the energy transition, it's no different anywhere else, right? What we really have to tackle is making our buildings more efficient, so doing energy conservation work, and working on energy infrastructure. So shifting away from fossil fuel-based energy systems to energy systems that are based on renewables. And that usually means all electric, but there's other options. Right now, we're focused on shifting to all electric so that we have electric-driven heating and cooling systems using geoexchange. And by the time we're able to procure all of our electricity from renewable sources, then you're talking about a carbon neutral system. So we have a lot of work to do between now and 2040. What's exciting and what I find hopeful is projects like our Maze Raise Solar Initiative. Actually learned a lot about contracts from a friend of mine at the Cincinnati Zoo. They recently installed a lot of solar panels there, but recognized there was a real gap in the community not benefiting from the solar arrays that they were installing. So when we contracted for the 25 megawatts of on-campus solar that we're rolling out now, it'll take about 3 years to roll that out. We included in the contract a community benefits package. And I'm inspired by what's possible with contracts. So the deal there was that 10% of the University of Michigan job, the solar contract, would be donated out in the community in a way that the community wanted it deployed. And the principle that the city of Ann Arbor and University of Michigan agreed on in starting to draft this together was that we would target putting solar on buildings that house community serving organizations. In other words, the principle is pretty simple: lower the utility bills for community serving organizations, and they can put more of those resources into community services. That was the fundamental principle that we agreed on. So we're actively working with the city of Ann Arbor to identify sites and to roll those arrays out over the next 3 years. So sort of interspersed in between the campus projects. So we're really, really excited about that. And it's a model that I hope we can find ways to repeat through other endeavors. So we'll keep looking for those opportunities. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Great. So geoexchange. So Bryant Park, of course, is a great example of a neighborhood scale geoexchange system. And maybe some of you have geoexchange at your homes. We installed a geo-exchange system at our house when we first moved to Ann Arbor, a little over 2.5 years ago. And these systems can be scaled way up. So we're really looking at the campus as a way to demonstrate single building systems, multiple building systems, and then ultimately a whole campus system where all of those sort of district scale loops are interconnected. So we're really thinking about what this looks like across multiple scales. So that's a geo-exchange drilling rig. It's basically a water well drilling rig in one of these photos, doing a test well on Palmer Field. So that's from just in the fall, these photos. Another thing that we are looking at is what innovations there might be in the geo-exchange space that could optimize these systems even further. Right now, we are limited by how deep water well drilling wells can go. And that's, that can be up to maybe 800 feet. And that's typically the limit. What if we could go deeper? We've explored, of course, the vertical shafts. There's also angled shafts that can be drilled to take advantage of, of space underneath structures or trees. But there's also this intriguing idea of taking oil and gas drilling rigs and going really deep for geo-exchange. So this has not been tested in the US yet. It's been tested in Europe. And we're doing an engineering study right now to see if it looks feasible to actually test one of these on the University of Michigan campus. What that would mean is if that works, and we're talking thousands of feet. So one configuration could be you go down 5,000 feet and you go laterally 5,000 feet. So 10,000 linear feet, closed loop, geo-exchange. The exciting thing, the potential there is that one of these could replace dozens of standard geo-exchange boreholes. So if you have limited land surface area available for geo-exchange, this could be a game changer. So central campus, urban spaces, downtown Ann Arbor, this could be a game changer in terms of deploying geo-exchange effectively, but it needs to be tested. So we're better to do it than on a college campus where you've got faculty interested in studying, where you've got some latitude to tinker. So we haven't decided if we're going to do it or not yet. We have to get through the engineering study. But if that looks feasible, then we will very likely test one on campus and run it through its cycles and see how it performs. And then, of course, also do economic analysis to see if it's cost effective. So that's one thought on the innovation front that we're all keeping our eye on. All right, we can go to the next slide. Partnerships. This is EarthFest, this photo on the screen, and the new LEED Platinum hospital on the hill on campus. And EarthFest represents a lot of partnerships, coming together, celebrating, and working together towards a shared objective. And of course, there's celebrations in the city of Ann Arbor that are very similar, and we attend each other's events and support each other in that work. So this is really important in this moment. This moment in our nation, finding ways to stay resilient and continue doing the work and continuing to celebrate and finding ways to bring people together, people from different backgrounds, different viewpoints. The data are very clear that most people agree rather than disagree about basic environmental concerns. We all care about clean air, clean water, healthy ecosystems, healthy food. So more unites us than divides us. So how do we continue to celebrate and bring people together? All right, next slide. Campus is a living learning lab. So I mentioned this earlier as this this place to tinker and to demonstrate. Really, we want to be a community where the world looks to us. The region looks to us. We're a resource to other campuses, other communities, other states, a place where policymakers can come and learn about what's possible, what's perhaps at the cutting edge, or what are the best practices that have the best data to back up the activities. So the principle on campus is that as we go through these coming years, deploying solutions, that we do so in a way that fully engages the academic and teaching environment and the student experience on campus. So we're actively inviting students in as we're developing these systems. So I meet with students regularly, student leaders in the sustainability space, and we're developing these conduits for students to come in as interns and be involved very early in projects. So they can learn not only about project management and meeting management and all of those practical skills, but they're also benefiting from what we're learning as we go through all of these efforts. So we've had students involved in the Scope 3 studies that we've been doing over the last year. We're working with the Center for Sustainable Systems and Seas on that same project, and we'll continue partnering with them going forward. So really engaging faculty and students on this journey. So there's the campus as a living lab is a connective tissue between all of these systems, the academic and research and teaching systems, and the campus itself, how it operates and planning and decision making and all of that. So we're really excited. We're at the beginnings of organizing campus's living lab better, so that the system is the systems where we have various staff working in the campus's lab space and different units, different departments, and bringing them together and organizing that system so that we can have greater impact. So we're excited about that journey. And of course, that includes not just the campus. When I think of campus's lab, I also, in my mind, think campus and community as living laboratory. So we're also really excited about the partnership with the city of Ann Arbor to continue to cultivate those opportunities. All right, next slide. This is my last slide. The living lab stories tell themselves. When you talk to students who've been immersed in the different activities on campus, it's really powerful. So a couple of these images are from the campus farm out at Mathai Botanical Gardens, and the straw bale building that's adjacent to that garden is up in the corner there. And there's so much interest from students in getting close to what we're doing on campus. So when we were drilling geoexchange bores as part of the central campus housing complex that's being built right now, there were so many students who wanted to put on hard hats and get close to the drill rig and watch it working that we had to we had to expand our tours. The demand was much bigger than we had anticipated. And that continues, that level of interest in being engaged. So these immersive experiences are incredibly rich already on the U of M campus. And I'm really passionate about supporting those and helping to create even more of those immersive experiences. And that's where I find inspiration and hope when I see the students getting lit up by what they're able to do and the problem solving they're able to get their hands on, and the communities that they're able to build together. So with that, I'll stop there and open it up to, I think we have questions. Is that right?
Well, hopefully there's questions. Who would like to ask the first one?
I got my hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
So that's wonderful, the way things are going, Professor Weaver. I just wanted to mention that in terms of geothermal, I just saw a report yesterday or today where Fervo Energy in Utah has confirmed geothermal resource temperatures above 555 degrees Fahrenheit. And they've got a reservoir of heat that they think is commercially viable. So I'm wondering, so my question is that, given, the new executive, yeah, the Trump administration's heavy pivots on energy, and that geothermal has been relatively safe you know, from, uh, from change. How quickly do you think you all can pivot to respond to these sorts of emergencies? I mean, or these unexpected events, to replan and maybe devote more resources where things look, more amenable, as
Yeah.
government policies change.
Yeah, that's such a great question. This is actually one of the reasons why we're leaning into investigating this drilling tech, applying oil and gas drilling technology to geoexchange, is because there does seem to be still an open lane for this type of work. So we don't anticipate it meeting a lot of resistance. And that's fantastic, because there's a lot that we need to do in that area. And what's going on in Utah, that's pretty cool, right? 500 degrees, we're not going to get anywhere near those kinds of temperatures here. Utah, that's probably sitting on a geologic hotspot there to get those kinds of temperatures. But we can get, if we're able to drill 1,000 feet down, we're talking 110 degree temperatures, which is much closer to what buildings can use directly for heat. So that's a massive efficiency if that can work. Standard geoexchange systems are, it's like, if any of you've ever been in a cave, right? It's like 55, 56 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
That's the stable temperature of the earth in the upper crust. So that's typically the temperatures that you get with geoexchange is 50, 56, 58 degrees, which is great for cooling and heating because you only have to boost that with a heat pump up to the heating temperature you need a little bit of the way. So yeah, I think that for, we're gonna lean into that lane as long as it stays open and keep pushing for geoexchange. And as far as we know, those credits are still in place in the IRA. So as we're installing geoexchange, we're continuing to pursue those credits. Now, could they go away? Maybe. But we're not actually relying on those credits in our financial calculations right now. Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Who has the next question? I'll ask one while people are thinking about it. What is your biggest concern between solar and geothermal? Is something changing to the plan? What are you concerned about? What could impact it the most?
I think you know, immediate financial realities are a concern, especially in higher education. There's seismic shifts happening that are impacting many institutions. So in the big picture, I worry about resolve. So in other words, continuing to invest now in what in that very possible future. The thing I worry about is slowing down the investments, which means we will not reach that future in the timeline that we've set. So I think that's everyone's worried about, the ability to stay the course. So we're constantly thinking as creatively as we can about how do we stay on course in the smartest, most cost-effective way possible, so that we can still keep on the path for this, 15, 20-year long energy transition exercise that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Rita, you have a question?
Yes, thanks. And thanks for the presentation, Dr. Weber. I have questions that are more granular, I think, and in particular, one is related to the Campus Plan 2050 and the transportation system that's been proposed. It's an automated, elevated plan. And I have concerns about the route that was originally proposed and then has been potentially modified, but there's not much information about it. I wonder if you could comment on whether you feel like that proposal is going to fly or not, and about the route.
Well, I don't know if the proposal is going to fly or not. I'm not sure if anyone knows that at this point. The route has also not been finalized. There is the university has stated it will not go through the Arb. That's clear. But the exact route won't be determined until the vendor is brought on board to actually do the final design, and that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So I think I don't know how to answer that one right now, because I don't think anyone knows whether it's going to go forward or not. I think it's continuing in planning, but there's been no decision made yet.
Okay, thanks. I have another question. This is potentially a hot button one, and that's about the data center in Ipsy that's been proposed. And a concern, excuse me, there are a lot of concerns with that. But I'll start with water and sourcing it through municipal water. I understand that that was a choice that's been planned for, but it's really Great Lakes water that I think should be adequately acknowledged. And so I'm questioning about also not just that or acknowledging that, but the what will happen with the water once it's passed through the system and used for cooling. I understand there's some materials that are added to the water, and how will those be managed?
Yeah, so some of those details haven't been designed yet because the site hasn't been selected. So the final systems design hasn't been set yet. However, there's a few different ways to deal with water. There's nothing there's nothing, to my knowledge, there's nothing added to the water for cooling. So when you bring water in from a municipal source, and ideally it would be reclaimed water from Yucca. When that comes into the system, it's cooling the chips, the computers, and then going in one option going into a cooling tower. And then there's evaporation that's happening there, so you're getting evaporative cooling through the cooling towers. There's nothing added to the water, so you might get mineral deposits in the cooling towers. But there's no concern about added chemicals or anything in the cooling water. Another way to do cooling is closed loop cooling. So once you prime the system with water, you're basically not losing much at all, but you're using heat pumps to push to eject the heat rather than a cooling tower. So there's pros and cons. The heat pump version uses more energy. The cooling tower version uses more water. So if you're in a water rich area, cooling towers make sense. If you're in a water poor area, heat pumps make more sense. So it remains to be seen which systems are going to be optimized for, depending on the location. But there's a lot of careful thought into what the options could be when we get there.
Has anyone thought about using geothermal for geoexchange for the cooling?
Yeah, unfortunately, with geoexchange, you have to have balance heating and cooling for it to work over the course of a year, right? So with this kind of a system, you're constantly ejecting heat.
Okay.
So if you just keep pushing the heat into the ground, you're just going to heat the ground up. If you're not pulling that heat back out, in the winter to use it for something else. I mean, that's the challenge is, that excess heat can sometimes be used for other things. There are plenty of examples around the world where that excess heat is considered an asset if it's placed close enough to somewhere where you can actually use it. So that's an intriguing question. What could be done with excess heat that's you have year round?
Mhm. There's also just a concern about the choice of the space, being in the township outside of the city of Ann Arbor, outside of the university property. And I think the university should acknowledge that, the concern of the community.
I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a commitment to continuing conversations, and it's been really it's not been smooth, and there's a lot of concerns on the table, and the university, I know, will continue having the conversations. So I look forward to those, and seeing if we can alleviate some concerns, or at least have open dialogue about what the options are.
Thank you. I think it's going to be difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Councilmember Malik?
Hi, Dr. Weber. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's always exciting to hear what the university is up to on the climate front. My question for you is related to energy storage. I guess I've just been reading lately, and it's become clear that, energy storage is really going to be key to kind of the overall energy transition, at a national and international scale. But unfortunately, storage at scale isn't really there yet. So I was curious, if the university has explored storage, and if so, how is it deploying it now, or how might it in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something I think about a lot. We don't currently have storage, but there's no question that as we do infrastructure master planning for the campus, that storage has to be part of the mix. There's no one silver bullet technology to solve this. We have to be thinking about really systems of energy solutions. So I think about both energy and thermal storage. So there are existing systems out there where you can use thermal storage, both water and chilled water, to produce those when it's cleaner and cheaper to produce them, and then store them for when it's more expensive and dirtier. So on some grids, on the East Coast, for example, you can chill water in the middle of the night for pennies, on the kilowatt, and then use that chilled water during peak days, hot summers. Everyone's turning their air conditioning on at 2-3 p.m. and you have access to all this chilled water that was stored overnight. So, and combined with geoexchange and renewables, and I think those kinds of systems are going to be part of the mix going forward. So, we're launching a central campus infrastructure master plan this year that is going to have to look at all of those options and where does it make sense to deploy storage, in the mix of things that we're doing. So, yeah, we will also need to rely on our faculty who are really expert in this space, who can keep us up to date on what's going on out there and where innovation is and where some of the promising technologies are.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to seeing what comes out.
Chris? You're muted, Chris.
Apologies. Thank you, Dr. Weber. I'm going to try to get you off all the energy stuff, which you're very deeply informed about already, and talk about or ask about two different things that are quite on the other side of the coin. What is your thinking about stewardship of the outdoors on the campus? There's a lot of lawn mowing, there's a lot of water use, there's 101 things involved in that. And then the second question, what about the stewardship of those portions of the campus that have native forest fragments? That is to say, trees native Ann Arbor second growth trees. There are some pretty large areas of those, some of which are really quite highly valuable biologically, that maybe are in harm's way of getting built on one of these days. So 2 areas.
Thank you for that question. Now you're getting really near and dear to my heart.
Oh, good.
So I am an ecologist by training, and climate science, also in my training. And Anya's other hat, we work together on a lot of these issues on campus. So one of the things that we're working on right now is an ecological assessment study to try to get a handle on where are those most valuable spots. What are the conditions of our remaining fragments, so that we can start being strategic and develop a stewardship plan. So we're roughly halfway through the ecological assessment study. We need to do more in the spring and summer, and we have great partners on campus with the campus planning team and also the grounds. Our forester and the grounds team are really passionate about this work too. So I'm really excited about this because if if Michigan ends up being a climate refuge and we've got lots of people coming to Michigan over the next couple of decades, well, remains to be seen if that's what happens. But we do need to be very thoughtful about stewarding, especially the high quality fragments that are left, and then start to build resilience around those. And there are going to be development pressures, so we're trying to put a stewardship framework in place to help guide us through that and influence decision making through that tool.
How about all the campus maintenance and the stewardship of the landscape portion of the campus? It's an amazing amount of money involved there, and as well as energy and resource use issues.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, through work that's been done long before I got here, there's been a dramatic reduction in chemical usage in the maintenance, the grounds maintenance. That was part of what we called the protecting the Huron River watershed. It was sort of under the umbrella of that. And that has expanded to a resilient grounds framework that involves a partnership of a bunch of different units. So we're broadening beyond just chemical usage and really considering all those other aspects. Electrifying, maintenance equipment, and all the things that go along with that. But that's we're not there. We're not 100% there yet by any means. But there's a strong team of people who are building that framework too, and we'll keep moving through and improving there.
Thank you. Glad to hear these things.
Yeah, there's I pay a lot of attention to plants when I walk through campus.
Yeah.
And there's some really beautiful things going on, and there's also some places that need some love.
Thank you very much.
Rita?
Yeah, I just want to add on to that a question of how you may be coordinating with the city of Ann Arbor and our natural areas and parks, and where we have shared boundaries, how can we work together?
That's a great question. And, Anya may actually have better answers to that than I do. It's certainly an interest I have. But, Missy and I haven't talked about that one specifically yet, but I'm sure it will come.
Thanks.
Anya, you want to go ahead and answer that question?
Yeah, well, I can share a little bit. Part of the work that we're doing with our new resilient grounds goals, and some of the data collection we're doing that will inform the stewardship plan does involve that it's actually a lot of connections with the GIS and mapping folks from the surrounding community. So we've been having ongoing conversations with folks from like the Huron River Watershed Council and Washtenaw County and the city of Ann Arbor, so that when we are looking at our mapping of our natural resources, these are not separate maps with separate data points. We can look at them collectively, and a lot of that has been with the intent so that when we start doing these stewardship plans, we can have it be more of a community regional conversation, and not just falsely stopping at our property boundaries. So it's a starting point. There's a lot more conversation to have with that, but I think we started making those connections.
Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I had years ago when I was more involved in this. I forget how many U of M employees and students and hospital visits there are every day, that come in to the university, either as patients or students or faculty, what have you. And so, these cars, if they're electric, they need to be charged. And the cheapest way to charge them is to have solar panels available in parking spaces. So I'm wondering how the economics have evolved for just doing like direct charging from solar versus, just putting everything into the grid and taking whatever you get back from DTE, for charging because, these cars are there during the day, during business hours, when the sun is at its brightest. So I was just wondering how that's shaken out over the years.
Yeah, and I don't know if those direct chargers have been studied for the campus. I'd have to talk to our transportation folks, but I suspect that at least on central campus, where you've got mostly parking garages, there's pretty limited area for those direct chargers. But the campus, the central campus that's powered by the central plant is a microgrid of its own. So when we install these 25 megawatts of solar panels on campus, that's behind the meter. In other words, those panels are not directly feeding DTE. The power will be directly used on campus, and very rarely might we have an excess. That would be vanishingly rare to send it back out to the grid, to the broader grid. So essentially, if you have chargers on in that microgrid and solar panels in that microgrid, you're it's all going into the same the same system and drawing from the same system. So it's an interesting question. I don't know if there are some spots that might be amenable to the direct charging, maybe on North Campus, but I'd have to check in with our transportation folks to see if they've studied those.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's some efficiencies to be gained. Because I remember even years ago having a number of solar panels equal to the area of a parking spot can generally charge a car up for the average commute, 20-mile commute.
I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Olivia?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the presentation. That was great. I'm a master's student at SEAS, and I'm actually working on designing agrivoltaics for the Harper Preserve up in Genesee County. So it's inspiring to kind of see the bigger picture and how it is all connected. I have a question that is like pretty specific and pretty visible to me because I live fairly close to the stadium. And you were talking about like how the university wants to conserve energy as well as make this energy transition to renewables. And I wonder if you could comment on the scoreboard being on like pretty frequently during non-game days, both from an energy standpoint and also light pollution. I know I've heard quite a few people ask about that, and I'm curious if you can shed some light on.
You know what? That one was not on my radar. So now I'm gonna, I meet with athletics regularly, and I'm happy to go back and ask that question.
That would be great. I mean,
Appreciate
it's
it.
obviously an energy thing, but also I'm a birder and I worry about the light pollution for birds, especially during migration seasons.
We'll ask that question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Rita? You're muted.
Sorry. I just looked up some information on water treatment and data centers, and apparently there is use of corrosion inhibitors, nitrites, molybdates, borates and azoles, whatever those are. So it's just something to think about. And I just wonder what happens after, what happens with water that is treated like that, and can that be removed, and at what expense, and what's the remaining water like? Does it become perpetually gray?
Yeah, I will certainly take that question back, though I'm wondering if this is a distinction between the types of systems used at commercial data centers versus the types of systems that might be at the smaller facility. But I will take that question back.
Thank you.
Who else has questions? Mike.
Dr. Weber, thanks for being with us tonight. Great presentation. You preemptively answered a bunch of questions I had. So the only other one I've come up with is, and it's really just a curiosity. I'm sure you're familiar with the City of Ann Arbor's sustainable energy utility and development. My understanding is it's primarily for like residential and commercial buildings, or maybe industrial buildings in the city, and maybe not the university. But I'm curious, is my understanding, is that right? Or and just beyond that, like, have you talked to Dr. Stoltz at all? Like, is there any opportunity for cross-pollination or collaboration? You were mentioning the geo exchange. I know like that's going to be a big component at some point in the future for the SEU. And, the campus isn't kind of like, one place. The city is intermixed with the campus. So I could envision ways where they could benefit together, and the university wouldn't have to be as reliant on DTE. But yeah, is that an option, or can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and of course, the SEU is still getting formulated, of course. So I'd say it is an open conversation. And in fact, the community benefits package, part of our solar initiative, we've been exploring, like, what does that mean for the SEU? Like, if as these arrays are being deployed out in the community, it may make sense for those to be rolled in to the SEU. There might be some good logic to that, especially because those arrays, if they're deployed on various buildings, they need to be maintained and cared for. So if they're part of the SEU, that could have some benefits. Geo exchange, Missy and I meet regularly, where we keep in touch on everything that we're up to. And we're constantly exploring these questions like, well, what if this and what if that? And what we do know is that the university can't be a utility for the city. However, I'm sure there are creative ways for us to figure out how to leverage, the challenges that, or leverage the opportunities to reach these goals that we share. Right. So that's a very open conversation, and we're, I think, equally eager to find those ways to support each other.
Perfect. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Last chance. Okay, I think we're out of questions. Thank you, Dr. Rover. It was a very nice presentation and great Q&A.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda, we have work group updates, building decarbonization. So anybody on that work group want to talk about the meeting we had?
I'm ready to go, but I didn't put it in there.
I can briefly talk about it. I just had to pull up my notes to remind myself. So yeah, we met last week on Friday. We mostly talked about the benchmarking situation. For folks who aren't familiar, there's the newest annual benchmarking report is out, so there's some findings from there that we can peruse. But I think more fun and interesting to this group and to members of the community, there's a brand new interactive map where you can go around and see like each building that is under the benchmarking ordinance, whether or not they're complying and participating, and kind of get access to aggregated data and things of that nature. There are some challenges, but it's really a fun tool. And I kind of had a nice time hopping around, checking out some of the commercial buildings I frequent and seeing about their water and energy usage. And but it's still under development and it's still a evolving thing. So I would say, folks, as you're checking this out, once it's made more available, I think the city staff wants feedback and like ways to improve it or other features that you'd be interested in, or if you catch anything that maybe looks awry on there. And I guess we also talked about, sorry if I'm stealing staff updates here, but OSI just hired a new staff member who is going to focus on commercial building decarbonization, starting, it sounds like in a week or two from now. So we'll have some more capacity to lend to this issue space as well. I think that's the majority of what we talked about. Feel free to fill in what I missed or got wrong.
Yeah, I looked at the map also and just kind of poked around, and it's interesting to look at different buildings and see what's going on. I mean, eventually I think we'll see trend lines. Right now we have trend lines of one data point for each building, so it's really not a trend line yet, but it's there and the structure's there. So I think now is a real good time to look at it. And if there's other data you think you would want or be interested in, if you're looking at moving to a different apartment and data you want to see, now's a good time to get it all built into the system. There's lots of filters that you can put on there now. We talked about another one to add, and they're like, "Yep, we can do that, no problem." So, it's a good thing to look at and play with before it gets too big and too complex. Changes later get hard. Changes now are easy.
One of the other things that was emphasized was the receptivity at this point in time for ideas of an approach to map the data down to what can be done to actually move that towards higher levels of efficiency, lower utilization, lower energy consumption, and water consumption. So that's our conversation ended with that. And it's like really looking for where we're going to go next with this.
Next is reusable containers.
Yeah, we met last week. We kind of had some draft deliverables after splitting up and doing some research. We're focused on basically finding ways to get funding for this program that the city's trying to launch. And so we're focusing on co-benefits of returnable containers as well as comparable programs in other cities, which are few and far between. And I think we will be planning on presenting our findings to the group sometime this spring. So kind of just refining those and making it a little more relevant to Ann Arbor and helping OSI create a good argument for why this program should be launched in Ann Arbor.
Cool. That's looking forward to it. Sidewalk gap filling, Rita?
We met yesterday with city staff and talked about refining some documents that will communicate about sidewalk gap filling issues. We've had some significant discussions about how to do it. Identified some gaps in data on how tracking how trees are mitigated when removed. And from my perspective, the best positive outcome would be to assure that we have a program that supports both the safe transportation that's supported by the city and retaining as many existing trees as possible that are en route of a proposed sidewalk, because we need both. People will use sidewalks if there's a place that's pleasant to walk, and it's beyond pleasant. We also gain ecosystem services that are cleaning air, water, providing shade and cooling, beauty, and habitat. So I'm hoping that we gain all of those. So stay tuned. We're close to finalizing our documents, thanks to ongoing help from Aaron.
Chris, you had a comment?
People should know that a fair number of neighborhoods in the outer kind of old rings of Ann Arbor were built without sidewalks. And they should know that going back 40, 50, 60, 70 years, maybe even a little more in some of those neighborhoods, trees were planted exactly where you would put a sidewalk. And so that's the conflict. And those trees are, of course, landmark and heritage trees now. And in some instances, if not many of those, taking them down would completely change the street and completely change how people feel about their places, might affect their value of their houses. So we, on your behalf, on this committee, have been trying to get good recognition, and I think we have, of this problem. And hopefully we get good attention at trying to solve in a design way that minimizes the taking of these trees when they're in harm's way. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next is water quality. No, Sarah's not here. Aaron, do you have an update?
Oh,
Or Steve?
or I could do it, or Aaron. Your call.
Well, we haven't met since our last meeting, so
Oh.
that makes the update easy.
Yeah.
But we have a meeting scheduled for early March.
Okay.
Mhm.
Next was city council updates.
Thanks, Chair Curtis. I don't know if Councilmember Cornell has anything else to add, but the one big thing most of you have probably saw, the fourth draft of the comprehensive plan was released, I think, last week. This is the plan, or this is the draft that came out after the 63-day public comment period that spanned most of October, November, and December last year. The City Planning Commission anticipates reviewing this fourth draft at their next meeting, which is next week, Wednesday. So that would be February 18th. And I believe that includes a public hearing on the draft. So I know the comprehensive land use plan was of great importance to a lot of folks in this group. So if you're able to tune in on the 18th, and if you feel so inclined, provide comments on the fourth draft. I know I haven't read through it yet, but I have it up on my computer and hope to get to it this week. So it's a long slog. It is a long, long draft. So thanks.
Okay. Aaron, I think we had staff updates next.
Sure. Yeah, so this is great. We had some of these covered already. So the link, if you want to access it here to the comprehensive land use plan, that's in the staff updates as well. And then Commissioner Berkowitz provided a great overview of the energy and water benchmarking kind of tool that you can play around with, and that link is here. A few more updates from OSI, and Maggie can jump in if I say something incorrect. But so the snowblower rebates were extended until February 28th, so you can access that here. So you can residents can receive up to $200 in rebate funds for a new electric snowblower or shovel. So you can access that at that link. There's an upcoming monthly clothing swap on February 19th from 4 to 7 at City Hall. So as a lot of you have probably participated, but each person can bring up to 10 items of clothing in good condition, and you can take clothing even if you don't bring anything to exchange. And it's a completely free event, and these have been amazing. Ann Arbor earns an A rating for environmental leadership. So the city of Ann Arbor has been recognized by CDP, the global environmental nonprofit, for its leadership in transparency and action. So that is a great kind of kudos to Ann Arbor's environmental and climate programs. The last update from OSI here is there's already been $100,000 worth of A20 home energy rebates in the first 2 weeks of January. So that is still open for folks, and you can access that program at that link. And then one quick update from Parks. There's a public meeting this week via Zoom to discuss the future of the South Pedestrian Bridge on the Border to Border Trail in Barton Nature Area. So that bridge has reached the end of its useful life, and so the staff are planning kind of what comes next for that bridge. So if you're interested in that, you can go ahead and tune in there. And that is all the updates that I had.
Thank you. So next is our second public comment. We allow 3 minutes per speaker. We don't respond in a moment to speakers. We do appreciate you taking the time to comment. Please call 888-788-0099, enter meeting ID 988-7619-2402. To raise your hand, press *9. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. When speaking, please move to a quiet area, state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Aaron, do we have more callers?
There is a caller. I want to give him a second. I don't see a hand raised, but just wait a few seconds. I don't see any hand raised for public comment. No.
Okay. So next meeting is on March 10th. We're going to have a presentation from Ann Arbor and DTE on the heating franchise. And just a general reminder, if you have other topics you would like presented in future meetings, please let somebody know so we can get them on the agenda. We typically have time for more presentations if we have more topics that we want to cover. We don't want to just necessarily cover topics to kill time. That's not the point either. So, and that's it. If is there anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? There's one. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. We're out of here. See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, all. Take care.
Thanks all.
Bye.